even numbers, so I count up by the twos. Damn, you gon' count it by the twos. Roll with certified. First you gotta get approved. You know, I gotta get approved.
So, Pastor, we got a restaurant that just opened up locally called Big Beaners. This restaurant was opened by Jesse Quackenbush, which is a local lawyer here in town. He's very known for his cases. He's been around for a long time.
Bro, what's the name of it?
Big Beaners.
Like, what kind of food do they make?
It's gonna be a Mexican cuisine. He said he got the best. God. He got the best recipes from like foreign countries, like more southern though than Mexico. But he did say Mexico.
But it is.
It's gonna be Hispanic cuisine type food. He's very known because his daughter also got arrested in Nashville, Tennessee, for running over a homeless man. Well, no, wait, take that back. Not running him over. I think she shot him.
Yeah, she
and
shot
said,
him. Sure.
Are you ready to die? That's what she told him before she shot him, and she got off with that case with manslaughter.
Oh wow!
So, which is typical.
You said that was his daughter.
That was his daughter in Nashville.
Oh
Nashville,
wait, he
Tennessee.
died.
I don't know. I don't know. But he shot him. I don't know.
Oh. Well, because I thought you had to, in order to get manslaughter, I thought a person had to die.
Well, I guess he did.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
I don't mean to
I'm
laugh.
not sure. I don't know. I should have went around that topic a little bit more, but I just wanted to throw that in there because that was something that he was recognized for as not only a lawyer, but his daughter's out here being crazy. But I seen on his daughter's page and her social media, she's really for the Black Lives Matter. I mean, she's constantly posting about it, and she's saying, people need to get off my dad's restaurant and really focus on what really matters as far as like Black Lives Matter. But I wanted to hit the Big Beaners as a local topic. So how do you feel about that restaurant being named that?
It just goes back to previous years where, white privilege, they feel like they can say anything that they want to. And because of our president, the same privileges is arising now. You see it all over. People say what they want to say. I remember when I was in school, Hispanics couldn't speak Spanish in class. If they did, they were told, you're not in Mexico, you're in America. We talk English here. And so it's always, they feel and still feel as though they can do and say anything without regard.
No
and
consequences.
Yeah. And so that's very disrespectful. It is. It's very disrespectful.
Especially in today's time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it was back in the day, it probably wouldn't be as much of, an impact. But now today, you got more of an aware generation.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I think that comes from the younger kind of generation. We a little bit more progressive when it comes to things like that. Like we hear that kind of stuff and we see it, we know it ain't right, and so we actually gonna get up and say something about it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I mean, I really don't know what to say about that. I don't know. He probably the lawyer, isn't that Quackenbush? Quackenbush. I don't know. He may not have tried to say that on purpose to offend the Hispanic community, but he that's what it is. That's what happened. You cannot say stuff like that.
He knew he was gonna get some backlash from it. I mean, I know.
I don't think he did. He may not have.
Yeah, he definitely did, and
that's
I don't
probably
know.
his promotion campaign.
Yeah, that probably is his promotion campaign. I mean, just from what a lot of the comments I was reading on Facebook, that's what I was actually trying to find, but I can't find it. But he just is like a real cutthroat type of person. Like, he's not somebody who's like somebody could come at me and be like, okay, I'm gonna let you have it. You go, because what they say, like, somebody from a distance can't tell who's the fool. Like, if you argue with the fool, like, they can't tell who the fool is. So, you know what I mean? But, like, Quackenbush is definitely not that person. Like, he's going to, like, argue and, like, talk crazy and, like, use his Facebook. And I don't know. I just don't. I definitely think he knew what he was doing. They say he's been racist. So, I mean.
I don't think that he feels that he is racist. But from somebody else's perspective in which he doesn't care, it comes across as being that. He'll probably say, my heart. I have Hispanic friends and, the whole spiel. But, I think that it's just he doesn't realize how disrespectful that is.
Most of the people that were commenting and actually had had a negative way towards the name of the restaurant and what he did were young people. I mean, the older people wasn't really. They were saying, "Man, look, this is a great idea. I'm eating there."
I know. I did see some Hispanics saying they were gonna eat there. I was like, "This is crazy."
Some people was like, "Y'all just need to quit being a little too, sensitive about the situation."
Right.
So I seen, and there was like a lot of older Hispanic people, and I believe these are his friends because I even I was going down his page, his Facebook, and stalking just a little bit, and he got Hispanic friends. Said, hey, how is so and so? How's your brother doing? Or that was actually on his daughter page. She was like, hey, you can contact them here. They moved here, so I mean, it looks like they have a Spanish community that they associate with.
And that's what I was saying at first. Like, I don't think he was actually trying to be racist with naming it that. He may not have seen it that way, But I mean, it's just the way it came across. And now you got to actually kind of learn on what to say and how to say things in this time and era,
I actually passed by it and I recognized it, but it wasn't even in the media yet.
Where was it at?
Because my fiance, she works at one of those medical facilities over there. It's on Coulter, so remember where ER Now used to be? It's where that Waffle House is on Coulter Street? Uh-huh. It's right next door. Right next door. If you were parking into the Waffle House, it'd be on your left. So if you're going towards the mall.
Where that little wheelchair place used to be.
I don't know if it's right in between the Waffle House and the car lot. Right there. So, I mean, I seen it and I kind of brushed it off because I'm like, okay, people ain't talking about it. So, but let's just keep it real. If they named it Big Niggers,
it would be the problem.
It's gonna be so we gotta understand that if it would hit us, it would hit them the same way. So that's my understanding about it.
Let's just hope they don't get any soul food restaurants, soul food recipes.
Yeah, trying to get.
Nah, for real.
Exactly. And the thing is too, like you said niggers and beaners. I mean, I understand they both are offensive, but one is way more.
The N-word is way worse than beaners. But
that's for you because are you a Hispanic person?
I am.
So beaner, they might feel a different kind of way because you got both, right?
No, I think there's lots of Hispanic derogatory terms. I feel like beaner is kind of like
a funnier one.
It's like a funnier one, like something that you might say in grade school, but you ain't going around the playground calling nobody the N-word. I mean, and if you are, you a bad mama jam.
Ain't nobody got Lynch called beaner.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so it is a fun term for it's something that you play around with, but this nigga is not a word that you play with.
Exactly.
It's not something that you want to name anything. I know that we use it, going back and forth, out of it's a term of endearment, but for someone else to call us that because that's it's just offensive. It's just I mentioned the other day on the podcast, and my white friends, they were like, oh, I can't believe he said that, but it's just, and when you say there's no other way around it,
Mm-hmm.
But even if he named his restaurant Big Mama's, I still would have a problem with that.
Right, because he's kind of swaying towards the black culture.
Yeah.
It's a culture thing for me.
Yeah.
I feel like you just come on, you got to stay in your lane when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And they were just saying what about the Cracker Barrel? And they was just like, that's not the same.
See, that's
thing.
all they always try to compare something. And it don't pan out that way.
Yeah.
It's not a comparison type of thing.
But they were just like, what about the Cracker Barrel? But we think about it. Most likely, the Cracker Barrel is not owned by a black person or a Mexican. Yeah. So I mean, it's just all different. And if that was the case, they would have brought that up a long time ago. Don't bring that up now. But I feel it seems like he has a very, very offensive way of thinking of homosexual people. So we've been about this on the podcast. This topic probably comes up a lot. But I mean, as far as him broadcasting it in the way he is, in the way, I mean, you don't have to, sometimes your opinion is best to be silent. Yeah. Because
a lot of people have a hard time with that. But
it's not that your opinion should be silent. It's that sometimes it's not your space to speak in. Like, it's not in your, I feel like anybody can feel how they want to feel. Like, you want to be racist. That's completely fine. But you better not bring that shit over here, okay? You stay at your house and you talk in your house about how you feel. You know what I'm saying? And so I just feel like if me and my black friends are having a conversation about how something is affecting us as black people, like Susie, my white friend, I love you, girl. This isn't your time to speak about how this affects you, okay? This is your time to put on your listening ears.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure, she being your friend, she respect that, I guess she wouldn't be your friend.
Okay, so respect. We have to, we have to learn how to respect our authority, and we have to recognize those who are in authority, whether we like it or not. There's one thing that was spoken here today about how it's unfair and you want to be yourself. but it is, what we say, it is what it is. But because our journey is different from everyone else, we receive a greater benefit. We receive greater blessings because the harder the struggle, the greater the blessings. And that is a principle that we all should live by. My journey is not like somebody else's journey who's my age and he has a different color. But I wouldn't give anything for my journey. So that therefore, whenever I operate in this world, I have to give that respect. When we're dealing with the police, it's just a fact that he is an authority. But there's nothing that says that you can't bring about and you can't talk about the wrong that has been committed against you. But you have to be respectful all at the same time. You can speak on and encourage, and you can even bring up things that they've done wrong, but you still have to recognize where they are, that at any moment they can take your life. But you have to, you can help somebody, or you can tell them where they're wrong. That's one thing that in church that I'm learning as a pastor, that I'm not always right, and even though I'm an authority figure, whenever I talk with people, I have to be humble enough to accept what they are saying to me. Now, some people just don't know how to talk, but still, we have to learn what that means to. I'm looking for a word to help somebody else. Like, we look at it as negative. Hey, I got something I need to tell you, and we look at it and we approach it negative instead of approaching it. I'm trying to help you. So when the police pulls us over and he's doing wrong, yes, we can raise our voice. Yes, we can get excited. Yes, we can be mad. There's nothing against that. But when we begin to speak outside of what we're supposed to be doing, if we begin to call him names, that is against the law. That is actually assault. Whenever you begin to cuss them out and begin to do those things and become aggressive in that manner, they can perceive that as an assault. So it's one thing to tell them where they're right and where they're wrong, but it's another to overstep your boundaries because they have that shield. They represent the law.
You're creating fear.
Yeah.
I mean, when they start like, oh yeah, he finna get crazy. So that's when that nervousness comes.
Yeah.
And that's usually when
They feel like we a threat.
Yeah. That's usually when they know that taser will stop you, but they know that gun will kill you.
Yeah.
So you know which ones they're gonna go for.
At the end of the day, they're gonna make it home. That's what their motto is, their motif.
To protect yourself at all times.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it home today. No matter what happens, I'm making it home.
Because I'm not gonna lie, their job is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not say it's not. I mean, they like the front line of the, like when stuff happens.
Because really they risk their lives for us every day.
Exactly what I'm
and
saying.
I couldn't do nothing like that. Like,
Exactly.
I'm not going to do nothing
But
like
for
that.
you to choose to go into being a police officer, I feel like you have to be prepared for that. Like, you have to know like what you're getting yourself into.
It's like
and
signing
you
up
have
to
to
go into the military. Like,
but I'm saying
know.
you got to have like a calm mentality when you have to approach people, because that's what you're gonna be doing on a daily basis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but you gotta still know where they coming from.
I know, but
like, you gotta chill.
I feel like it should be against the law for them to even just reach for their gun before they even try to reach for their taser if they don't see a weapon.
I think the rule they got is protect yourself with as necessary forces you need to.
Yeah, a lot of times we don't understand their culture and what they're into, because a lot of those guys, when they get into the academy, they go in for the right reasons. And a lot of those guys don't have any clue of the black community and how it operates. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden you become an enemy. And then you're always being treated a certain way. So it affects you. Whether you realize it or not, whenever you are every day, when somebody treats you wrong or treats you mean or treats you like an enemy, you start developing a mechanism to where I'm going to treat you like you treat me. Mm. So when they pull somebody over, knowing that they can't stand them and that, they might have a gun, or even if they don't, I'm going to have a problem with them, they're going to approach the situation where, here we go. I'm going to, I'm going to put this, I'm going to, protect myself. I'm going to have this mentality that I'm going to make it out of here regardless of what they do. Mm. So a lot of those guys, they are hardened, and some of them don't go in to be racist, but because of dealing with, that situation, they end up being racist.
Right. They
Yeah.
be around it like that, and it just
So what do you think should happen to these police? Because we can all agree that not all cops are bad, but there are some bad cops that we have to deal with. Like, so what do you mean? Like, how should we be dealing with these officers? Like, what should happen to the ones that just happened in this George Floyd situation, or even the ex-cops that were in the Ahmaud Arbery situation?
There should be a clear defining line that says when you do this, you're clear cut, you're going to jail. Clear cut, not, we don't have the evidence, or, it's heartbreaking. I mean, yesterday I was so heartbroken that, I've been trying to fight back tears all day long. I thought that I'd probably cry today, but, it's been heartbreaking for them to come up with excuses to excuse bad behavior. I have friends. I have a young man that I grew up with. He's a police officer in Midland, Texas, and he was saying, "Hey, man, if that had been me, I'd have run up on him myself." And so to watch that and
Being
see
a police
it,
officer.
yeah. If I would have been on the scene, I would have done something to him myself. So to see that and to be in fear that something, once again, nothing's going to happen to this guy. It's heartbreaking. It is. It really
It's gut
is.
wrenching.
I think
It is.
that's what creates the that unknown power that they think they got. Is like, if I shoot him, yeah, I'm gonna get fired nowadays, but I'm still gonna be taken care of at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that needs to collapse.
And I feel like they got to start taking accountability upon themselves as well. It's like, how we was just saying that we feel like some white people need to start locking arms with us and start, being on the front lines with us. Well, I feel like some police officers, even though they may be scared, we scared when we do the same thing out there. Start standing up and start going against what they're doing. If you know that police officer is bad, then you need to say something about it at that time. You know what I mean? It's just, they have to also hold each other accountable. That's how I feel about them.
It's a wall that need to be knocked down at this point.
All across the board, there needs to be a common language that we can speak. Because what happened with Black Lives Matter was it caused a division to be made. All of a sudden you had Blue Lives Matter. All of a sudden you had
All lives matter.
Yeah. So because there was they didn't care to understand. All they were saying that our lives matter too. But because they misunderstood and didn't really know what we're coming from.
But you have to also want to understand.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you have to want to understand. And so when they look at it from a perspective, well, they're just out there hollering, they're up there, they're making, problems, that really don't need to be. There has to be, in some instance, to where it can't just be Black Lives Matter, because at the end of the day, it's just like if you've ever looked at on newsreels where you have those people in the Middle East that are fighting an army with a stick.
Mm-hmm.
What good does it do? They're throwing rocks at tanks. It doesn't do any good. So when we look at how do we have an effect? How do we make a difference? It all goes back to strategic thinking. We have to think this thing through strategically. We have to get people on our side that can really, truly, do something about this. Like I said, in the civil rights movement, it wasn't until white people started getting killed that people really truly started
paying attention.
Yeah.
Right. I'm glad you brought up strategic, thinking, as far as like we all have to come together and start thinking as one, and come up with a strategy in order how we have to move. Because when you brought that up, it made me think about the riots. And I seen a video and I also heard about what was going on with the riots, is that, they got people going around breaking things and stuff like that, but it wasn't even like the people that was protesting peacefully that was doing the things. Mm-hmm. It was actually kind of like plants sent in to go do that and break these things to make it seem like the protesters are the ones that are actually going out here and doing these things. And that, and all that does, that put a bad light on, first off, the black community, and also the people that's out there protesting, thinking that we just going out there tearing up the community and stuff, when we're not even the ones starting it. Y'all got plants coming out here to break these things, and and make it look bad upon us, So
Then at that point, it's a domino effect. Because if I'm an angry person, like, you got to think, like, we feel emotional and sad about it, and we're not even there. We're not even in the city that this thing has happened. And I know this is starting to happen about all different places in the country, but just think about, you're there. This is the place that you live. This is the police department that you have to deal with. So, like, I feel like, yeah, people can try to say that them looting and all the other stuff makes us look bad, but with or without the plan, I feel like you just get so upset and you just get so mad. you feel like there's nothing you can do, so you're gonna do the only thing you can do, which is like hurt something. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna want to mess some stuff
Want to
up.
break some stuff. Well, Pastor, how do you feel about it? Like when it comes to that rioting thing, and even like them maybe putting a plan out there to make it seem like that we destroying the community, even though we're not.
Well, speaking on, the plant, or, it's scary to think that they have a plan for every time that we act up, or they have there's something that we can't see. So what does that say to us? What do we, when we get into these situations, that means that we have to think these things through. They expect us to burn stuff down. The first thing that they did, I guarantee you, the first thing the police department did was they went after they knew that they were going to have a riot. Have a protest. Mm-hmm. They didn't go out there dressed in their blues. They went and put on riot gear. Mm. They were ready for us even before we knew. Well, it
That's
just
what
happened. Yeah. They, they're going to have a protest. Well, let's put on riot gear because we know how it's going to happen. And matter of fact, they gain advantage whenever we do riot, because it makes it, it changes the narrative.
Yes.
It changes it away from what is really going on to, oh, they're acting up again, and they're thugs, and we become, all of a sudden, instead of victims, we become thugs. Right. And they already think that. So when we act that way, that gives them see
justification of doing it. And it's just, and then what happens too when you said that is that the public and everybody on the outside looking in, they forget all about the George Floyd situation.
That's
what I mean? They just thinking of all these black people out here just tearing up shit and just just bringing down the community and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
it's already shifted, and now the next, when the next thing happens, we're going to forget about George Floyd, just like we are starting to forget about Ahmaud. It's just, because of just that's how it is. Everybody gives their hashtags and say, I've got numerous phone calls, which everybody had a good heart and they are apologizing, but that is as far as it's going to go. What are we really wanting to do? What are we really trying to do, make out of this? When we talk about the riots, that works against us. Yes, okay, they had, sometimes you have to go to the extreme to get the results. What happened? They were not going to charge them, and then they burned stuff down. Now the man's in jail. But in the same instance, it counts negatively against us. So, you have to go into these things, and this is where the conversation has to happen right here, because as long as we are the same color we are, it's going to happen. It's going to come. It's going to visit us. Mm-hmm. It is. It really is. It's down the road. So right now we need to be starting to have the conversation of what do we do before it comes to us.
So we got the Ahmaud Arbery situation as well. I mean, something that's very similar in a way. So, but this was a citizen's so-called arrest more than a police arrest. So I look at it as a
I didn't know that was real.
It's the same thing as, it was police brutality. Yeah. I mean, you messing with the system, you using that to your advantage. So you got Ahmaud Arbery, just to get everybody worked up on this situation. He was jogging in the neighborhood, starts getting approached by two guys. He wouldn't stop, so he went home, got what they needed. They said they saw him looking through a construction window, and they, tried to make a citizen's arrest. He was not going to go for the citizen arrest. And it looked like at the last moments of this, before he fell down from gunshot wounds, that he was fighting for his life.
And it's not to cut you off, bro, but it was three people, too. You got to think about the person that was carrying the camera.
Well, I didn't got to him. Yeah,
I'm just saying it was three people in the case.
I want to bring him up, too, because he just is wrong. But I just wanted to, he was jogging, got approached by two. And I heard the person with the camera, he actually cut him off, too, tried to cut him off. Mm-hmm. So he was trying to mind his business because I bet he felt kind of scared at that point. But they brought weapons, and I feel like if it takes you three people to bring a weapon to fight one guy, you shouldn't be trying to do a citizen's arrest. I mean, that just don't even sounds right. So how do you think this case should result? And then how would you feel? Put yourself in Ahmaud Arbery's shoes and tell the people how you feel about what you should have done, like if you was Ahmaud Arbery.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that it is a exposition. It exposes the systematic racism, that white people in their privilege feel like that they can do anything they want to do, and because of the courts has backed them up, their president has backed them up, and that they have the right to say and do whatever they want to. So, as a black man, as a young black man, you can't forget about where you are. You have to be aware of your surroundings at all times, knowing that anybody's watching you. You're not, you may not see them, but they're watching you. Even walking anywhere, being on the wrong side of town. He's not the only person that's ever been dealt with being on the wrong side of town. I've heard of a young man who was in Canyon this past week, young man, who was cutting his own yard. And because his neighbors weren't aware that a black family lived in that side of town, he was approached. Are you a hoodlum? What are you doing on this side of town? And so he wasn't even aware of what was taking place. And so that's a failure on his family's part as far as not
kind of
teaching him, hey, and that's one thing that we had to do as this stuff has gotten bad. Hey, my son, hey, be careful of how you carry yourself. Don't be out with your hood on. Even though you do see, you got to be careful because you never know what is going on. Don't wear, when, I know you're trying to grow your waves, but don't be all everywhere. Don't fit the bill of where you could be racially. And this young man, he was clean cut, but he was in the wrong place, and he couldn't have done nothing about what happened to himself. That was just meanness. They planned that. So it's but we as black people, we have to be aware of our surroundings. It's just we're not as much as we hate it. We're just not.
Man.
All they did. What is it said that Frederick Douglass said when they freed us from slavery? They didn't free us; they just took the chains off.
Yeah, we enslaved in a different way now. I mean, we still like enslaved.
But the shit is so frustrating just because we actually have to go out our way in order to teach, our kids this kind of stuff and it may be stuff that we may forget, but it's important for us not to forget to teach them these things because this shit can happen to them, and it's so frustrating, and it builds up into me every time I hear about this kind of stuff, man. And it brings me into a rage, man, and then sometimes I just want to break down. I don't know what to do at times, You know what I mean? And it's just I don't know how to go about the situation, but like you said, I have to teach my kids on how to move, especially in certain places.
Yeah, I know back in the day, whenever I was in the late '80s, early '90s, when I was in them streets, like most, it was said that black men were from the age of 18 to 25 were endangered species. I never thought I'd ever live past 25. Not just because of the way that I lived, but just by accident. That somebody, or it could be somebody who looked like me that would take my life.
Yeah.
So it's a danger. You have to, and I learned early.
It's a jungle that we going through.
Yeah. It is even as angry as I was about certain situations. I had to be thoughtful. I had to be, careful in where I was.
So in his situation, in Ahmaud Arbery's situation, even if he had that knowledge of, like, I'm running through a white neighborhood or I'm running through a place that I can be assaulted, what can he do? I mean, what is his? Because
that was nothing he could do. He was hunted down. The best thing.
That just gave me chill bumps. Oh.
Yeah, he that was just like if you remember any movie that you've seen where there's been racism it's planned out. It's planned out. The excuse was that there had been a string of robberies. So any black man that came into that situation
fits the category.
Fits the category.
Right.
He could have been a midget. He would have got shot that day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's scary. And they had came out with those shirts, run with Ahmaud because he was jogging around the neighborhood. And I came with my own slogan I thought of, and it was fight with Ahmaud because the last thing I seen from him and that he was fighting those guys before he went down, And so I feel like that's what we should have been pushing is fight with Ahmaud. You always fight until it's your last breath. You know what I mean? And so
there was a guy, and whenever I was, like I said, a young man in Jasper who got drugged to death because he was just not doing anything. So these white men in Jasper, Texas, strung him up and just dragged him behind their truck. And so this is not anything that is new. It's been happening. Even outside of Houston, there was a place where only, a black man was the only black man that lived in this housing community. And he ended up being killed because of, nothing that he did. It was just that he was there. So we have to be aware of where we are in our surroundings. But in that case, man, this guy, he was just served up. He was just served up.
Well, what do you think, like, us black people should do? You think we should be, like, carrying weapons with us now?
Man, I carry. It is what it is.
Jordan, don't pull your gun out.
I ain't pulling out my piece because I'm gonna keep the peace. They think that, like, I mean, it's just something that you have to do. But I carry legally though.
I carry legally too. Yeah,
I make sure that I'm not gonna spark up a different situation that they can pull on me, because I know I'm gonna go to jail if I was to shoot, but I know I'm gonna go to jail with some behind me. Like, I was legal and I was protecting myself and I was legally carrying.
So what you think? Can we shoot at the police if we feel like okay? Because really, if I murder somebody and I feel like my life is in danger, because that's how they get off with it.
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean by shoot? Like, you gotta give me an example, because there's certain ways.
So, unarmed black man gets shot by a cop. One of the major reasons that like his whole plea goes through is because he tells him, like, I truly believe that my life was in danger. So I see a cop. He acting crazy with me. I believe my life is in danger. Can I shoot the cop or no?
No, because of that shield that he has on his chest.
But it falls into this. Legally, they say you can, right? That you can use your force against if the police is putting too much force
what's
on
really
you.
gonna happen?
You can. That's what I'm about to get to. Right. So legally, even when I got my license, the question came up. I got my license in Florida, and it was a room full of minorities. Hispanic, black, white people, it didn't matter. Everybody was in there, and the question got brought up is, can I shoot an officer if I think my life is threatened? The legal answer is yes.
Yeah.
But that's the same thing as saying, can I go out here and do something else? Even though it's under the Constitution that is right, you're still going to get punished for it. Well, and if they can get you one way, they can pull in and get you another way and treat it even worse than the situation is. So you're not going to win in that situation.
Even being a legal carrier, you're still responsible for every bullet that leaves your gun. Like, if the police show up on a situation where you had to shoot somebody to defend yourself, you're going to jail too.
Yeah, that's what I said. You got to be ready.
Yeah.
You're going to jail, but you still have that that law behind you. Just that little bitty piece of hope, like, that. And it's sad to say it, but I don't want to. I'm not. Basically, what I'm saying is I got my license because I don't want to go to jail for having a gun.
Yeah.
That's the thing that it eliminates is.
And then it also teaches you about, the laws of carrying a gun, and it makes you more aware of that. I just can't pull it out and shoot anybody, even though I carry and can open carry. I don't, simply because I'm a black man. I don't want people to perceive me in the wrong way. That's protecting myself.
Yeah. See, like, if you just knew me, you wouldn't even know I carry. Yeah. I mean, it's so hidden. But I got a Florida license, and I got to respect the Florida law first, and they don't have open carry. Yeah. So even if I go to a different state that has open carry, I can still not open carry.
Yeah.
So I have to respect the Florida laws and then respect the Texas laws as well.
And a part of being black too is that we have to, if we want to be able to carry and stuff like that, we also have to have a clean background. You know what I mean? They always try to hit us they always give us felony charges and stuff like that to where we're not able to carry. And so it's far and few of us that are allowed to do it anyway. So
if you young and you clean,
stay that way.
Stay that way.
Yeah, because they will strip your rights from you.
Yeah,
they was, voting, all that. The stuff you think that ain't important really is important.
Yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Ahmaud. The systematic racism. They have, it's a system that is set up to keep us, in line and chains and imaginary, not imaginary, but in chains that nobody can see.
Right.
It's a system that is set up to send to that a young black man lives in an impoverished area. There's no jobs. There's not even grocery stores. There's nothing there. He's malnutrition. He's living in poverty. How can he make a living? Well, he can't. He can't. So he's forced to sell drugs. He's forced to rob and do the things that are against the law. So therefore, he falls in line to what they're expecting. And so therefore, they're getting caught up in the system. And then he goes into prison. So it's almost like a elementary school to prison pipeline that they have set up. And if you watched 13th Amendment on
I
Netflix,
watched it this morning. I watched it this morning.
I ain't even got to it. Yeah, they get paid They're making money off the prison system. It's privatized. So here you are. It's just what it is. It is what it is. It's
Cycle.
modern day slavery. Yeah. There's a book out by Michelle Alexander. It's called The New Jim Crow, and it talks all about that. It talks about how this system is set up to keep us enslaved. There's one thing that we can do right now is combat poverty. What can we do to educate our people how to respect and know what to do with money, how to save. Every time that we get that, when January hits, we all running trying to get our tax money so that we can buy new Jordans. Why not invest in something that will save money or to build our wealth?
Right.
There are a few people that just don't, I'll go get my hair did and all that kind of stuff. But we have to think strategically.
Why are we like this though? Like, what is it? Because even me, like, I got paid yesterday, and I'm telling you, things been a little rough for me. And I seen that money in my account, and I was like, let me go online shop. And I haven't bought anything, but I really want to. Like, why are we like this?
It's just ingrained. It goes along with the systematic racism, because we have such a lack. And because even Madison Avenue, which is advertising, is all advertised towards us. Whenever they advertise beauty stuff, they don't show a fine black woman. They show a white-haired, blue-eyed. So therefore, we feel like we're not good enough, and though we have to go buy the product so that we can look like them.
Like that.
Instead of we being okay with our short, nappy hair. And our features are they are. We're beautiful. God has made us beautiful. We're wonderfully made. God is carefully put us together. We are who we are, and we can't allow anybody to dictate that. So we're fighting against a mindset. It's not so much of what's outwardly going on. We're fighting against a mindset. Systematic racism teaches us to hate ourselves. Mm-hmm. It teaches us to think less of ourselves. When I was growing up in where I grew up, it was so bad that I thought that I was less than. I grew up thinking that. Well, I'm
still
black.
Feel that way.
I'm black, and I can only do this. I never thought of myself as a president. I never thought of myself as being a doctor or a lawyer. I knew the best that I could possibly be was where I'm at right now as a preacher or a football player or a basketball player.
A rapper and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
They didn't rap back. Well, they did have rappers back then, but they wasn't making no money.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So you wasn't trying to be no rapper.
And that's like we see on TV now, and then like a lot of kids see now. They see these rappers having all the women, they have the jewelry, the cars, the rims, and all that kind of stuff. Not knowing all the rims gonna do is fuck up your transmission. You know what I mean? So
the women ain't good for your health.
But
so
just get you
it's
one
a
solid
training.
one.
It's a like you said, it's a training on the mind as far as systemic racism. You know, and it's something that we have to notice at a young age, and then also something that our leaders have to point out to us to say, hey, that's not what it is at a young age. You know.
Yeah, and even our leaders, we find ourselves. We had an off-camera conversation. Even our leaders find themselves looking at the wrong side of it. They're looking at the riches and what it can do for themselves. That's just that's selfish. And we, as a people, in order for us to grow, we have to look at ourselves as a group, that we're all the same, instead of looking at what can it do for me. Even now, if something was to happen in Amarillo, you're going to get 1,000 people lining up with 1,000 different agendas, instead of just one agenda. We want to get this done. You'll get people up speaking. They'll be the spokesperson of it, and they'll come, and sit in front of their business or their church, and in order to gain attention, So
it's gonna bring my business money instead of thinking about what it's gonna do for everybody else as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a great fight ahead of us, and we have to sit and have conversation, and not only just talk about it, but do something about it. We have to make plans. We talked about earlier about all the meetings that we have, with if something goes wrong at the school, everybody run up to the school board meeting and gripe and yell, but then on the next school board meeting, they maybe show up.
There.
Yeah. So we have to have a plan.
Well, you mentioned self-hate when you were talking, and that's one thing I actually have been like really looking at, because I feel like, oh, I mean, I don't want to get on her, but like Doja Cat, she was called out for being racist, but to me, honestly, it was just a lot of self-hate that she had going on, which is kind of like a little bit of racism within oneself. But how do you feel like us as a black people can like start being a little bit more like in love with ourselves as a people, and not have so much self-hate? Because me personally, like, I'm biracial, I'm half Mexican and half black, and my father, he held so much self-hate that he would push off his self-hate onto us growing up. So like growing up, I always struggled with things like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to get too dark, because my dad, he's so dark, and he would always say like, I'm a dark-skinned white person, and like that's hateful, like you're hating your skin color essentially, you know what I mean? And he would always say things like, oh, we can't be like those people, or like we're not ghetto, like. And so it was like, even though I'm black and there's all these things that I want to do that like my peers are doing, other black girls are doing, that I like and I should be able to indulge in, I'm not doing it because I don't want to be perceived as ghetto. And so like, what are some things that we can do to like better ourselves but still be in tune with ourselves and like love ourselves?
We got to know who we are. There's one thing that I've learned as being a pastor, just not being a pastor, being a true, authentic Christian, is that I had to learn who I was in Christ. And if you don't mind me preaching just for a moment, whenever I begin to be comfortable in knowing that I was made in the image of God, and God is perfect, and God makes no mistake, and when He formed and fashioned us, He did it with a purpose. And so regardless of what I look like or what I appeal to others, I have to love myself, because God loved me enough to create me. God put His best. We are made in the image of God, Imago Dei. And so that is the problem. We don't see ourselves as God sees us. We're so special that He sent His Son to die on the cross for us. He could have left it the way it was, but He was concerned about our situation, and that there was a separation between Him and us. So therefore, He cared enough about, He brought Himself down and put Himself in the flesh to be ridiculed, to be spit on, to be talked about, to be somebody, his own friend, his own people turned their back on Him. Whenever He was arrested, they ran from Him. And so therefore, I can't hear myself. So therefore, we have to understand that we have to come into the understanding. And for black people, we are wonderfully made. We are beautifully and wonderfully made. We are God's people, and God loves us, and we ought to love ourselves simply because of how we're made. And we have a unique makeup and how we're made. Everyone wants to be like us. Our nose, our lips, you got people making billions of dollars because they want to blow up their lips now.
But and I feel like they don't want us to know that, though. Like the higher powers to be, they don't want us to know that everybody actually wants to be black. You know what I mean? Like black culture actually, kind of rules the world in a way, because
No, not in a way, it does.
Yeah, because everybody here want to be black, and then everybody around the world want to be American. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's it all comes back to us. But I feel like they don't want us to actually see that in ourselves.
Yeah.
I hear about stories about them actually blowing the nose off of the Sphinx now, because they don't want to know that the nose on the Sphinx was actually like a black nose. You know what I mean? It's bigger than what it was.
What they thought it was.
Exactly, and so they don't want us to actually see ourselves as kings and queens and stuff like that. And so that to me, that has to do with systemic racism again. You know what I mean? They kind of push that,
taking our history away from us.
Exactly.
Because like in school we learned about white people history and all the great things like these white people did. Like I remember we might have like touched on a couple of weeks of like what black people did, and that's in a whole entire school year. But for the most part, we only talked about black
Only
people
in February.
Yeah, in February. And it's just not cool, because like, I mean, how inspiring is it if you're a kid and you're hearing all the great things like this black person has done? But like, we're 8 years old and we're in class and we're just looking at all of our white peers around us and hearing all of the things that a white person did. And I'm not saying that we're not excited for like you evolving mankind another step. Yeah, that's
Right.
cool. But we want to see people that look like us, that come from the same place as us.
And before you go, Pastor, I was going to say that what you were saying, Derry, is that the thing I heard that the worst thing that could have happened to us was like integration back during the civil rights era. You know what I mean? Because we stopped learning about our history.
We suffer from any time that we get something that we're not ready for. Slavery, whenever we were released from slavery, people didn't know. They wanted slavery to end, but they did not have a realization of what that meant.
What was going to happen afterwards?
Yeah. So after slavery, a lot of them went back to the plantation because they didn't know, they couldn't handle, or they weren't taught how to be free. And so with integration, whenever with the jobs start coming in and we started experience prosperity, we didn't know how to handle that. We took that and felt like, okay, well, things are all right, I can, but really it nothing changed except that we got a little bit more money in our pocket. So it's almost like, oh, I'm gonna give you more rope so that you can hang yourself with.
Another form of slavery, basically.
Yeah. So we walked away from what got us to where we're able to cross over. We left that behind. We've left those foundations. We've left those teachings. We left the community. The community, when the community was broken, it caused everybody to go individually pursue their own American dream. And so that we've forgotten that we are a tribal people. We are a community-based people. And so therefore, when they broke up and tore up our community, that's why they did what they did in Black Wall Street. If they could break up the black community, it makes us consumers and dependent upon them.
On them.
Yeah.
Well, there's two more things that I wanted to like brief up on a little bit. Okay, so like the first thing is I feel like the black Americans suffer the most from this. This is not all the way around the world. So we speaking for black Americans. We can't speak for everybody else. There's a lot of other people that doesn't even pertain, like they don't even experience racism to the point that we experience it, because we're like right here in the core of where it was brought to. I traveled to Canada. Racism is little to none, So I think it's just here, and we experienced the worst of it. So it's hard for me to speak to like certain African. I know everybody got their own problems, and they probably learn about a lot of history that we don't even know about, people that we don't even know about. When I was growing up, even in school, I thought King Tut was white. And it took me a while to figure out if you were Egyptian back in that time building pyramids, you were black. The closer you are to the equator, the darker you are, right? Because your skin pigment has to be able to withstand that sun and that heat. Second thing is, and I'm kind of like all over the place, but I've been silent for a long time, but it's kind of hitting me now. The second thing is I feel like the black community, the reason why we're always behind is because that's what we had to generate in order to survive. The ghetto-ness, or what people say, or us eating just like certain things like chicken, like a cheap source of meat, and
pork.
That it became a culture for us. Like it became something that we was all right with, and for us, it's been going on for so long that it's became a norm. Like black drug dealer,
It's
or
our culture.
something like this. It's in the culture to. It's not wrong to us anymore. We've made do with what we had with the scraps. Is basically what I'm saying, and we've created a culture around it. Because when we got brought to over here, when our ancestors did, we didn't have a culture. Our culture was stripped. So if we don't have a culture, we lost. We're really lost. You got the Asian community. They got it. They got it together. But we are like a new form of black people. Like we're not the same as the Africans is today. That's where we came from. But they generated a whole different class of people that don't know anything. And when we go to Africa, they look at us like a different type of race. Because we've been stripped and we have a different culture. But like you said, everybody wants to be like this culture. Yeah. So it's just, it kind of hit me home because I'm a part of a lot of different things that got to do with our culture as far as music goes too. But it always ties back to, like, we always come out on top, most talented, most fastest. Like, we're dominant. We're a very dominant race, but we're lost as far as history goes. Yeah. And I think that's where our problem is we're actually lost. I mean, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time built up to be able to.
Well, you got to think about it. We're 50 years behind of everybody else.
Or more.
Yeah, or more.
So, yeah.
Okay, I want to speak to, something about where we were, talking about how we as black people, why do we do the things that we do? Why are we so behind? And it simply, goes back to systematic racism again. We were taught how to survive, but we were never taught how to live. And even now, we are still in survival mode. That's why we respond and we react and we don't plan. And when we learn how to be proactive and learn how to be strategic in our thinking, then we can begin to live out our lives in the way that we should. But we need to sit down and talk about, hey, what is best for us, not for, forget about a Juneteenth parade. What else can we organize? It's funny how we can, do all these things for Juneteenth for one day. But what about the rest of the year? What can we do to bring about a community that used to come naturally to us, and we're not that way anymore? And we've slipped back into survival mode. At one point in time, my mother's generation, their fathers and mothers, they came out of the Depression and they came out of slavery. And so they taught their children, hey, you got to go to school. You don't have any other option. You have to get an education. You have to get a job. You have to stay on that job. Even though they were poor and they never thought they'd ever get out of it, they taught them some kind of standard of living instead of just going out and do you. But my generation, when I grew up, my parents were, hey baby, you got to get out of here and live your life and be who you're supposed to be. They didn't, I didn't learn those things that I needed to learn like they were taught, because they felt like they were restricted, so they weren't going to bring us through what they went through. But they forgot that that's what we needed. That was the foundation that we needed to be successful in where we are. So when we look at the world now and you see all that's going on with us, we're strictly just surviving. We're running off emotions. We're running off of passion. We're running off of lust. We're running off of everything that we feel. So even drug usage, even drinking. I used to look that was a part of my life simply because I was responding to how I felt. I was trying to tragedies that happened in my life. I was trying to make them less effective in my life. I was trying to dull the pain instead of dealing with what was going on in my life. I was chasing after my feelings, but once I began to know that there was more to life than my feelings, because they changed. My own truth led me down a path that I wanted to destroy myself. But whenever I figured out that real life is truly living by an eternal truth, and that the truth of the matter is there's more for us than living off emotion. It's tiring. Have you ever been around somebody who's just up and down all the time?
Most definitely.
And just, there's always an issue. There's always a problem. The house is burning down every day. That's exhausting. That's exhausting. So we have to look at life in a different perspective. As a culture, we got to stop responding to everything that happens. Yes, it's okay to respond, but we have to think strategically. And I keep saying that over and over again because I think we need to learn that
It's
word.
important.
Even as a leader, as a pastor, I had to learn how to think strategically. It wasn't all about preaching. It wasn't all about, getting up there hooping and hollering and making myself look good. I had to learn how to be a leader. I had to strategically think, what are we going to do this year so that we can have an impact on my community?
Right.
Great.
Right. There was something that we kind of touched on off camera that I think is actually important for us to kind of talk about on camera, because not only us do we have these kind of questions. I feel like our whole generation are kind of wondering these type of things. And Dever, you have brought it up. It was kind of more of you saying that you were a spiritual person more than a religious person, which, and to be honest, I kind of feel that same way as well. You know what I mean? And I used to be the person, I'm in the church, and Pastor because I was at his church, I was there every single Sunday, you know what I mean, growing up and stuff. And I don't know, like as I got older, I just started feeling like there's no one wrong religion. You get what I'm saying? It's not just this religion is better than this one, or it's more right than this one. I feel like if we all believe in God and we all know what's the right things to do and the wrong things to do, then we can, it's the right thing for us to do. You know what I mean? And that may not be the case, but that's the kind of understanding that I have about it.
But
Now, Dever, you had an opinion about it too.
I also believe that the world has power. And maybe that's God, but I also feel like there's a certain power in just the world. Like, there's a certain power in myself. And so, like I always say this, but like Erykah Badu, she says, if we were made in his name, then I'm a God too. So I feel that. And so I feel like it's always a big struggle between religion and spirituality, because it's just especially like us being black, I don't know if like you were taught to go to church when you were younger, but like church was like how you say, like it was engraved into my brain. Like, you had to go to church, you had to dress a certain way, and you do want to give God your best, but we used to read the Bible before we got whoopings and stuff, and so I always used to think like, this is crazy, like this is crazy, this is madness. And so like my idea of how religion was shown to me, even by family, it's just not the idea of religion that I actually want for my family right now. As I've gotten older and I've gotten to visit different church, like I cannot commit to a church, like I just can't. Like I church hop, I find a church, I might go there for a few Sundays, but I'm gonna go to another church in a couple of Sundays because I feel like I can't commit, because I don't want to be held to nobody's expectations. And I feel like that's what it is with the religion with me. It's not necessarily just the religion itself, but everything that comes along with the religion, the people, the expectations, the traditions, you know what I mean? And it's like, even when you start going to church too, as you probably know this too, you go in one Sunday, yes, they talk to everybody, but the 3 Sundays later, they asking if you want to come to Bible study and if you want to be part of the next cook-off and all this stuff. And you're like, I'm not ready for all that. I just want to get the word for right now. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like sometimes being overwhelmed with religion can also have an impact.
That is
on our confusion.
Yeah, we as a church have, like I said earlier when we first started, that we failed you guys simply because we didn't develop relationship with you, and and at the end of the day, that's all that they wanted, and that's all that they were trying to do. But because they were so used to the churchanity, and that's what I call it, the religion. When you say religion, I look at that as a negative. When you say I don't want to be religious, I don't want to be religious, but I do want to have a relationship with Christ. And looking at it, there is no other way to live other than knowing and acknowledging the fact that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. There is only one way to heaven, and that is through Christ Jesus. There's other ways to live, and there's other ways to pursue happiness, but there's only one way to achieve my ultimate goal. And when we talk about heaven, we're not necessarily talking about a place up in the sky. We're talking about a relationship, a relationship with God. Even right now, a lot of people say, well, I don't go to church because I want my heaven right now. Well, heaven lives within you because God lives within you. You can have that same relationship. You can have that joy. You can have, those are called the fruits of the Spirit. You can have that right now. You can have that peace. You can exist and live in peace right now. You don't have to go to hell. I remember Tupac say, well, we all going to go to heaven because we live in hell. Oh, well, no, I don't know about you, but my life is full of peace, simply because I worship the Prince of Peace. So because I have a standard of living, because I have a way that I treat other people, because of what the Bible says, and because I'm trying to develop a relationship with Him, therefore I learn, and I'm less of me and more of Him. Because when you are saved, this is it. We are all full of sin. We all fall short. And there's none of us perfect, even those in the church. Right. They may act a certain way, but we all got some stuff. We all got issues. We got, so we're still in the making. We're still in, none of us has arrived. I have not arrived. I'm nowhere near where I should be, but I'm working towards that. So therefore, my mentality is, I'm not going to judge you, because you always came to me and say, well, Pastor, I didn't come to church. I know I'm not where I need to be. And I used to always tell you, I said, son, I used to be young too. I wasn't always in church. You're doing way better than I ever did. And so you still have a ways to go. You haven't reached the end of the journey. None of us have. So going back to, religion and going back to spirituality, what you're really saying is this: I want a personal relationship with Christ.
Unique.
I want a unique personal relationship with my God. I want to know that He hears me. I want to know that He understands what I'm going through. That I want to know that He has my best interest at heart, and that exists. But religion paints the wrong picture, and it forces our young people. We've left you behind because we didn't introduce you to have a relationship. We think that to be saved, you got to do.
That's real.
To be a good Christian, that means that you got to go to church. That that you got to pay your tithes. You got to do all these things. No, a good Christian has a relationship with Christ, And what we do in church comes out of our relationship with Christ.
Because of who you are, not because of what you have to do.
Yeah. So and so what happened is, Dominique, we failed to teach you who Jesus really was. We failed to give you a full picture of who he really is. We failed to take you through the scriptures and show you that he cares for you, even when you make a mistake, even when you're not doing right. You have to be honest with yourself. So we taught you how to fake it. You got to be the perfect little,
Right.
No, we taught you how to fake it instead of saying, hey, it's just real. He understands. Don't you know he came in the form of a man? He did the very things that we did, yet without sin. So he understands our struggle. So when we look at that, and I understand that all these people who serve as our teachers come into play simply because we didn't teach you at the local level. That's why Erykah Badu I used to listen to Erykah Badu. I used to listen to what she talked about, but when I began to get a relationship with Christ myself, that what she says, we're not all gods. How can we all be gods? Has you ever made anything? Can you say the Son?
Created, never created nothing.
I can't speak for y'all men folks, but I actually have created something.
I'm talking about, but can you speak to the Son and it go down?
No.
You talking about a kid?
Yeah. And you heard me say, when we look at each other, we are in the image of God, but yet and still we're imperfect. So what you're really looking for is you want to develop that love affair with God. You want to have that relationship with Him, and it's only through the truth of the Word of God. And so everybody has a journey. Everybody has a journey, but in order to know who you truly are, it comes through Christ. The only way you can know, because all of you right now, you are on a journey to see, who am I really? Have you ever asked that question to yourself? Yeah. Who am I really?
That's the number one question that hangs us up.
What is my purpose?
It's found between Genesis and Revelation.
The whole thing, huh?
Yeah, it's found between Genesis and Revelation. It tells us that we all are not perfect. There's nothing I can do to save myself. There's nothing I can do to live righteous. God provides everything that we need. When we develop a relationship with Him, even in our wrong, He forgives us. He loves us. He's not there to punish us.
Right.
He wants us to live rightly. But those who are wrong, they will receive their just rewards.
All right, y'all. That's been another episode of Streets Approved Radio. And I just want to say once again, thank you to Pastor Bennie Anderson here for coming and sharing his thoughts and his opinions with us. Man, it was greatly needed. I feel like this is probably our most important episode that we done had today, and maybe in the future, and so I'm glad to have him up here. I kind of want him to be like our resident kind of person to come in. Anytime we got questions, anytime we got questions or anything, I want to be able to call him up here and, answer the questions. Even our community that follow us, y'all got questions, comments, please, y'all know what to do. Go onto the page, like, subscribe, and also comment. Let us know what you're thinking, and that way we can get them over to the pastor. And Pastor, you want to give out your following, your church, and everything?
You can follow us on YouTube, New Hope Baptist Church, the New Hope Baptist Church here in Amarillo. Just follow us. We also have a beginning of Bible study on YouTube. It lists New Hope Amarillo. And just look us up on there. And really, I think that we're engaging in a Bible study that you would truly like on YouTube. So. And you can look at us on Sunday. We do Facebook Live every Sunday. So.
And the last thing we want to do is our gift to you. We want to say that you're approved by the streets. The streets likes to hear your word, and your word is real important. So we want to offer you this Streets Approved T-shirt right here. You're actually the first guest to get one. We're gonna start doing it, but I feel like it was only right to get this done today. So
we like I said again,
let us see your T-shirt.
Like I said, we really appreciated this, man. It's And this one, like I told everybody, this is going to be a real conversation. It's not he's not a pastor to just, he going to preach it, he going to give you the word, but it's just not no preachy type ordeal. He going to give you a real conversation and things of how he truly feel about things. So
yes, we appreciate you.
Last thing, our music artists, I'm sorry we didn't make it again this week.
Hey, we got y'all.
But we're going to make it next week. It's just too much going on in the world for us to breach on top of. Too much of the culture that's being stretched thin right now. But we want to thank our guests for coming. And, like we say all the time, you're not a guest no more, you're family. So we appreciate you for coming on and
Sir.
giving everybody your
appreciate that.
thoughts and opinions and addressing certain situations.
I appreciate it.
All right, y'all. This has been
Radio.
Streets of Food Radio. Peace.
Yay! We love y'all. Be safe.